Well, hello and welcome to the session Land, Thrift, Housing and Densification International Perspectives on Strategies of Land Policy. I'm very happy to welcome you all to the conference and looking forward to interesting one and a half hours of discussion and presentations. If you in the live stream have any questions or comments, please leave anything you would like to add in the chat you can find on the bottom right or on the right-hand side. You can also use the wall of interest, that's WOR, you can find on the top right of your screen. There you can also leave comments, pictures, and react to other comments from other participants. So that's all from now, and let's get started, I'd say.
Thank you very much, Johanna, and also welcome from my side. My name is Thomas Hartmann from Wageningen University. I am associate professor here in Wageningen University teaching land use planning, and I'm also the president of the International Academic Association on Planning Law and Property Rights. And I'm organizing this session together with Andreas Hengstermann from Bern University, who unfortunately cannot be today with us. Probably he will join us later on. And he is working at Bern University doing research in land policy as well. And he's also involved in the Planning Law and Property Rights Association. This is for the commercial break. Today we'll have a session where we'll talk about the important challenges of land policy of our time. And this is, of course, in the core of what we're talking about in the Urban-Rural Partnerships Conference 2020. And we want to debate on different aspects from different parts of the world. And we'll have 5 exciting presentations to come. So I will not use too much of your time, but I would like to kick it off right away. And we'll have the presentation first by Mariam Amarouche, I think is a good way to pronounce it. And after that, just a cliffhanger, we will hear about a large project that has been conducted by the Environmental Research Center in Leipzig. And instead of Jana Bové, Lisa Marquardt will present, and they're both working as a team, as I know, and this will be a very exciting, very broad overview of land policies within Europe. And we'll then have Dmitrio Boyko presenting. He's from Russia, now based in Hanover, and he will talk about post-socialist satellite cities. Very much looking forward to that. And then Jean-Marie Halleux will give us an insight from Flanders, the Beton Stop, or the Stop Beton. That's what's happening in Flanders, which is very exciting from any land policy perspective, because I barely know a place where you have such extremes of land policy like we have in Flanders. I'm looking forward to that, and we will then close the session with Eliška Wojcicka on developer obligations, and she's based in the Jan Evangelista Portinho University in Ústí nad Labem in the Czech Republic, where we had our last conference of the Planning Law and Property Rights Conference. So anyway, we kick off with Mariam. Mariam is now based at the University of Lyon. She went to different places already. So one of them was the Neymar Institute, and she's comparing in her PhD research Rabat and Lyon in terms of land policy. I will not take all your presentation. I'm just too excited about it. So Mariam, I would like to invite you to take the floor and present your research. And by the way, before you start, everybody who's listening right now, use the chat function to ask your questions and be very active on that. This is really important for these online conferences to use the chat function. Okay, Mariam, now the floor is yours. You're still muted. Please, your microphone is still off.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Thomas, for your introduction, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my research today. So this presentation is entitled Land Use Policy, the Dichotomy of Growth and Preservation in Lyon Metropolitan Villages. And sorry, just up. So this presentation is analyzing how the French state regains control over peripheral development by controlling urban sprawl through the planning tools, and how local actors manage to assert their interest by using the same tools. So this presentation results from 2 years of fieldwork. I collected 40 semi-structured interviews with conciliars, public urban planners, architects, metropolitan, departmental, and regional representative and planners. And like Thomas introduced it, this research is part of PhD thesis comparing the cities of Lyon in France and Rabat in Morocco, but today we're focusing more on the case of Lyon. My theoretical framework is based on the analysis of stakeholders network. It more precisely refers to the work of the French local geopolitics as Philippe Subra, which focus on local actors and conflicts and negotiation, and also the analysis of public actions about the instrumentation of public actions around the work of Patrick Le Gallès and Pierre Lascombe. The territory I'm examining is the West Lyon peripheral area, municipalities closed around 20 kilometers from the Lyon city center. Here you have the communauté de communes de la Vallée du Garonne, close to the metropolitan boundaries and composed by 5 municipalities, and la communauté de communes du Pays Mornantais, an association of 11 more rural municipalities. These attractive municipalities are well known for their high environmental qualities and are populated by around, each municipality by around 2,000 and 5,000 inhabitants. West Lyon peripheral municipalities identify themselves as villages. So these metropolitan villages fight to preserve agricultural and natural land, to maintain their environmental landscape, their quality of life, but also social statu quo, because they are attracting mostly upper middle class inhabitants. This presentation is divided into 2 parts. In the first part, I will analyze the construction of the regulatory framework put in place by the national level in order to control urban sprawl and how it is implemented at the different scales. And in the second part, I will focusing more on the case of West Lyon municipality to show the negotiation of the major principle of sustainable urban development through the concept of densified village. As shown in the figure, we begin our analysis from the law that accompanied the post-war urbanization to develop the country and fix also the housing crisis. So before 2000s, law favored urbanization and particularly suburban expansion, thanks to the private and public housing project and subsidies. However, from the end of the 1970s, controlling urbanization were hurt, and the town planning code was revised. But it's since 2000 that many laws have been passed to steer urban development toward a more sustainable approach. So the LOA-DDT and the SRU laws are the first law that mark a turning point in sustainable urban planning in France. This law has structured the regulatory framework and have adapted the urban planning tools to achieve it. So, for example, the SDO at the supra-municipal level, which was elaborated by the state, became the SCOT, elaborated by the collaboration between municipalities and still monitored by the state. The document does aim to develop a coherent territorial project on the supracommunal territory about different issues, natural areas, housing, economic development, etc. The POS at the municipal level became, thanks to these laws, the PLU, So the post was very permissive in terms of urbanization in particular. The PLU locked this and put in place many new zoning rules in order to guide urban planning and promote urban renewal. The PLU is also a more municipal political project than the POS, which was mostly a zoning rule document. For the control of urbanization, the integration of this principle, of this sustainable development principle, passed through the interweaving of scales, led to what Jean-Marc Hoffner called the nesting dolls of planning. So the PLU must take up the orientation of the intercommunal scale, which take the orientation of the SCOT at the supracommunal scales, in line with the orientation of departmental and regional scales. A multi-scalar integration of the state doctrine, but also a cross-regulation between the different scales of which the state remained the leader. Other laws had been developed. In 2005, the DTR permit to create more natural and agricultural zoning perimeter. The Grenelle 1 and 2 in 2010 permit to reinforce densification thanks to indicators in the different PLU and POS documents. But it's the Allure law which really force this densification, and it's the one of the law most cited by my interviewees, because this law abolished the main tools of urban planning in peripheral municipalities, the minimum land parcels, which allows suburban densification. So, and the state until now continue to fight this sprawl until the biodiversity plan in 2018, which want to block artificialization. Maybe Jean-Marc Halleux will talk also about it in another context to stop artificialization. Just quickly to give you an idea about how this geopolitics is built in France. Quickly, the local bloc creates different documents, the SCOT, the PLU, the PENAP, etc. They are local policies. The state ensure that this different document take into account the laws reglementation, also the state policies at the local level, and also a different state project. And there's also other territories which give their point of view about the different documents. The most conflictual relation in this geopolitics is between the state and the local bloc. The local bloc blames the state for their intransigence in the elaboration of documents, the failure also to consider their peri-urban specificities, considering the regulation that has been developed for urban area and not for peripheral ones. And also it's an opposition between the state and the municipalities. So here we could see how the state is governing through urban planning instruments by establishing the regulatory framework, the tools, the schedule, and all the points must be discussed, but also by monitoring the document during the elaboration and checking the availability at the end of the drafting process. We also need to nuance this. The top-down approach is a structurant, but thanks to the centralization process from the end of the 1980s, municipalities get a large number of competences, particularly in terms of planning. So we will see below how the implementation of this urban sustainability is built in negotiation with local actors and in agreement with their interests. At the first glance, municipalities did not receive a sustainability injunction favorably. The fight against sprawl built at national scale was a challenge for peripheral municipalities. Local elected representatives perceive them as a direct attack on their territories, but little by little, also because of the state monitoring and into local negotiation, agreement will build. Concerning West Lyon municipalities, that appear through the elaboration of the SCOT, so a strategic supracommunal planning document, opposable to administrations, and for 80 years duration, the concept of densified village appears as a compromise between, on the one hand, state goal to control urban sprawl, and on the other hand, the local goals to maintain dynamic, selective urban growth, population growth, and at the same time, the preservation of environmental and quality of life essential for municipalities that see themselves as villages. So as shown in the different image and the one below mostly, the densification in West Lyon is not importing Lyon iconic tower La Tour Crayon in the middle of the peripheral municipalities. Is most soft densification, which permit to maintain land, agricultural land, and natural land, and also discontinuities between municipalities, like you can show it in the picture below, on the top. Here, municipalities see themselves as villages and want to preserve this. So they used many different planning tools in order to preserve this activity, but also an environmental landscape. And the PNAP is an interesting tool. This document permits to preserve agricultural land. So here, La Copamo, so the biggest association of municipalities, have 87% of its territories protected by this perimeter. Concerning the Communauté de Communes de la Vallée du Garonne, close to the Lyon boundaries, the percentage is less important, but even in these municipalities, they try to mostly preserve wine production and the wine terroir, les coteaux du Lyonnais. This perimeter, PENA perimeter, is stronger than an agricultural zoning into local master plan, because to change the use of the PENA plan, in particular to urbanize them, it is necessary to obtain an interministerial decree. The preservation of agricultural land permit, on the one hand, economically for municipalities to keep a rural anchorage, which is more difficult to defend if there is no more farmers or agricultural production. On the other hand, to preserve a landscape thanks to this activity, and the municipalities appears as countryside area and reinforce the image of the village. Quickly, because we was talking also about densification in the concept of densified village. The densified village appears so as a compromise. It's a desire to build more in the core village center, close to the public transport, and to save small shop. With the pressure of the metropolitan pressure and policy supporting densification, new real estate players enter into the game. Densification allowed to increase the building rights on the plots, with them the possibility to develop more consequent projects and to increase profits. So the compromise around this soft densification is connecting also other issues, sustainable of construction, diversification of form, and also social housing development. To sum up, locally, the principle of the fight against sprawl have already shown results. For my interviewees, quantitatively, urban residential sprawl is under control, but what it also appears is that in the metropolitan scale, when West Lyon municipalities invested land preservation, that only transfer urban pressure in the more distant lands. So the municipal control and even the supra-municipal control fail to really control sprawl and question the good scale for analyzing urban sprawl issue. To conclude, controlling sprawl results from a negotiation between a rich actors network. Even at the first glance, the state is a leader by imposing the framework and monitoring the urban development. So state maintain his lead, the lead, but the densification also imposed a corollary to urban sprawl was rejected at the beginning and then hybridized with local issues and local interests, permit in the one hand to preserve this metropolitan village rural identity, but in the other hand open new question about concerning West Lyon, green gentrification, also metropolitan social inclusion, and question the good scale for developing urban sprawl policies.
Thank you very much, Mariam, also for the not only for the very interesting discussion and insight what happens in France, but also for keeping the time, which makes my life as a moderator far easier. I would like to see whether there are questions in the chat. As far as I can see, there are no immediate discussion points. I think they will pop up after we discuss all the papers more in coherence to each other. But I would also like to give the chance to our panel if you would have any questions to Mariam in her research. Anybody? If not, I will use my prerogative as a moderator to ask you a question. And I'm very intrigued by the French system that you described, which seems to be characterized by the struggle of the different tiers of government fighting for determining what happens on the land. That is in some way not very common to other countries where you have a more hierarchical structure of planning, like Germany, Austria, or Switzerland. So I was wondering how this competition of the different tiers of government, that's how I interpret it, how does that pay out in terms of active land policy? Are the different tiers of government buying up land strategically to achieve their goals, or is that not an issue at all in France? Can you reflect on that? Do you know that?
How the different scales how they manage to control the land?
Yes.
I tried to explain this governance by instrument. Like I said just quickly in my presentation, since the 1980s, decentralization process give more competences to the communal level, because it's at the communal level that the authorization for building is signed. It's signed by the mayor, but at the same time, the state has this use to control the urbanization, and you have this two way of governing. So the state used to govern, but also since the 1980s, the decentralization, giving the power to the municipalities. And for me, the link between these two side is the instrument, urban planning instrument, elaborated by the national scales, and all the rules put in place by the national scales, and so that permit to the state to maintain the control from the top to the bottom. And so using this PLU, SCOT, PENAP, and all that document permits to govern what's happening in the at the municipal level, but also at all the different levels.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very curious and I would like to dive more in the debate, but time is chasing us. I don't see any immediate raise of hands, so let's hope that we have some time in the end. Not sure whether we manage, but let's now move on to the next presentation and revisit the idea of the competing tiers of government about how to implement on land. So now I would like to give the floor not to Jana Beauvais, but her colleague Lisa Marquardt from the UFZ Leipzig, and she will talk us about the environmental impact assessment and land take. And as far as I know, this is part of a major project. It's called Surface, which just had their concluding conference, I think last week or earlier this week, I forgot. So I would like to give the floor to you, Lisa, and to present, to talk to us about land take. Lisa, the floor is yours. You're still muted. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'm trying to, sorry, I have some technical issue here. I need for some reason. We just
Okay, what's the trouble? You cannot switch the slide. Is that the problem?
no, the view somehow changed suddenly. I just had, I don't know why. Excuse
Okay,
me.
as far
Could
as
you
I can
maybe
see, it shows well in the app, and it also shows well in the.
okay, so you can see the slide, okay?
We can see the first slide.
Okay, then I try, and now how do you see the browser, the cursor also?
Yes.
Because I need this, and now the second slide.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Wonderful.
Then
Okay.
it's okay. For some reason, the view I see changed, and this confused me. I'm sorry. So hey, hello everybody. Yes, my name is Lisa Marquardt. I'm giving this talk here on behalf of Jana Bové, my colleague with whom I worked in the project called Surface. Surface here stands for Standards and Strategies for the Reduction of Land Consumption, and it's a small project funded by the German Environment Agency, in which we worked mostly with experts from actually all over the world, and to which we sent questionnaires. So our main method were 2 expert questionnaires on the issue of how to tackle land take, and our focus was on the EU. But as I just said, we also involved a few experts from other countries for comparison. So I changed also the title a little bit of the talk. I will talk on land take, its conceptual scope, and on its consideration and environmental assessments. The reason is, yes, that Jana cannot give the talk here today, and so I try my best to give you some insights on what we found in our project. I will focus on 2 issues, and the first question is what is land take, and the second is land take addressed in an environmental assessments in Europe, and does this actually help or contribute to reduce land take in the EU? So first, why this focus on land take? Well, as you probably know, in the roadmap to a resource-efficient Europe, the EU has committed itself to reduce the rate of land take, and it aims to achieve this goal of no net land take until 2050. And as you can see here in bold font, you see this term land take even twice in this one sentence. So we believe that in the EU policy context, land take is a very important concept. However, in our interview or questionnaire studies, and also in the discussions with the experts that we had, it became very evident that this term is often misunderstood, or it actually creates confusion. And one thing I found particularly interesting was that we got the feedback from people from countries in which, or from native English-speaking countries, that this term is actually not used in their usual context. So we found this interesting, and then we also thought about, well, what about our project title, for example? We have in the title land consumption, and also in the context, especially of the SDGs also, and the SDG 11 about sustainable cities, we often find land consumption in the related discourse. So we ask, how do land consumption and land take relate, and what is about, yeah, how can we actually communicate in a way that that people understand each other a bit more easily? I think this is especially important in a multilingual context like the EU. So here you see the definition of the European Environment Agency, which actually coined the term land take, because they came up with an indicator, this land take indicator, which they are now regularly monitoring and reporting for several years. I think it started in the early 2000, 2004. And so they say that the land take indicator measures the change in the area of agricultural forests and other semi-natural or natural land taken for urban and other artificial development. However, as I just said, there are also other definitions around and other concepts. And also the speaker, just the previous speaker, she used artificialization to describe a similar phenomenon. And so what we then did was we screened the literature about these land conversions, because more in fewer words, you could also say it's all about converting previously undeveloped land into developed land. And we collected a lot of definitions and or mentionings of these concepts: land take, land consumption, artificialization, and also soil sealing. And I come to this later, sorry. And would quickly now take you through this conceptual figure here, because we think that it would help to consolidate a little bit the terminology and the understanding about these concepts. So here in these gray boxes, you see we show here these different purposes for which the conversions are carried out. So to create, for example, built in the center, these three center boxes are built-up areas, urban areas, or other for settlements or infrastructure. So really artificial, creating artificial surfaces. But it also is about the first box here, the non-built-up green spaces in the area of settlements, like parks or other recreational areas. And in the far right side here of the graph, you see artificial areas in which the soil functions are mostly maintained still, although they are maybe intensively used by agriculture or forestry. And what I just quickly want to show here, I don't want to go into too much detail, but above you see the scope of the concepts that we checked. And the first arrow here, this is about land consumption as it is defined by the UN Habitat, for example. And I just want to stress that the term land consumption can be used in a very broad sense, and often it is used in a way that it includes areas or conversions of areas, for example, for the purpose of intensifying agriculture or forestry. But the terms land take, artificialization, or land consumption in the context of spatial planning, they would not call these conversions where you intensify areas for the purpose of agriculture or forestry as being taken or consumed. So this is just one difference we should keep in mind, so that it's important always to specify the context in which you use these concepts. We believe that in the context of spatial planning, land consumption, land take, and artificialization can more or less be used as synonyms, as long as you are not speaking about exact quantifications of the areas. If it's about monitoring and reporting, then you should actually be very careful about which terms you use, and this is related to these scope of indicators, which you see here below these gray bars. And here you see that when it comes to indicators in the very narrow and mathematical sense, then you have even a difference between the land consumption rate as it is used in the SDG indicator 11, which is then usually a very narrow scope, focusing on urban areas only, and the land take indicator by the EU, which covers the whole range of land conversions, which are usually, in the EU context at least, termed as land take. So having said this, I hope it did not confuse you more, but well, helps to clarify and consolidate a little bit the terminology. I would like to turn to the second part of my talk, and this is the question how or whether land takes actually addressed an environmental impact assessment. And we asked this question because we were also interested, of course, or are interested in ways to tackle land take and to reduce it further in the EU. So in 2014, there was this interesting amendment of the EU Environmental Impact Assessment Directive, in which they added land to the list of factors that need to be assessed during an environmental impact assessment. So where it formerly read soil, water, air, and climate are the factors which need to be assessed. It later, or since 2014, it reads land, soil, water, air, and climate. And our question was, does this actually make a difference in practice, whether you give this obligation explicitly to address not only the soil, but also the land? And so the EU member states had to implement this amended directive until 2017. And in 2020, this year, we sent this questionnaire to about 70 experts in the EU, asking them all kind of legal issues, whether and how this directive was implemented in their country, and well, also about their personal opinion on this. And as I'm not a lawyer like Jana, I will not now give you all these legal details and issue. I will only give you a very short impression on what these experts that responded, which were unfortunately only 22 from 11 countries, think personally about this change. So this year you see the list of countries from which we got responses from all of from experts, like 1 to 5 experts per country. So we asked them about have their country, has it transposed the amended directive, how is land dealt not only in the environmental impact assessment, but also in the strategic environmental assessment, and how land and land take is operationalized in these assessments. And finally, does the amendment make a difference in their personal view? And as you can see here, very quickly, I will focus on this last question, but most, or actually all of the countries, all these 11 countries have implemented the amendment. And in many of these countries, it also led to new provisions. However, when we ask about the impact, only 2 of them said, yes, it actually has made a difference, or makes a difference. And 13 said, no, they don't see any effect. But here you see that from these 22 answers that we got, only 15 directly responded to this particular question. So this is not a hard empirical basis of any kind, but I think it gives an impression of what people really dealing with environmental assessments on a daily basis think personally on this change. And then 10 of them said, well, it could potentially make a difference in future. And 2 actually said didn't even see a potential. And when we look a bit closer into which potential or change they see, you see that it's all about awareness and increasing attention. So this is mostly the fact the experts see, that it has contributed to raising awareness, that it has been, one said, a powerful signal, but actually none of them said really it plays out into a huge effect. So Why is this so? Many experts referred to the persisting challenges. They said that land take is still no relevant criteria for project rejection because other interests are weighted more strongly, and that a reference is lacking to which the land take which is assessed, often it is really quantified accurately, but there's no reference to which you can put it into context or give your judgment about. Then they refer to weaknesses in general in the planning system or legislation, to historic burdens that building rights have already been granted, and to take them again away from the landowners, you would have to pay a lot of compensations, and other shortcomings and general too little attention. So to conclude, I would like to stress that we believe that more conceptual clarity is needed in this whole discussion about land take and related concepts, that reflecting on the land types, on the land use types that are considered to be to expand or to be reduced, that this is a useful way to differentiate between the concepts, and for accurate quantifications, one should not use the different alternative terms as synonyms, which is, I think, permissive if you discuss these issues in a more general way. And secondly, with regard to the environmental impact assessment, yes, the amended assessment has been implemented in all the countries that we studied. Land and land take is possibly receiving more attention, or maybe it is so in future. However, the involved experts do not judge this change to make a big difference, and serious obstacles to reduce land take remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's turn to Lucas for questions from the audience.
Okay, we have one comment by Christoph Schröter-Schlag on the Surface virtual conference with the title "Achieving No Net Land Take in Europe. Are we on the right track?" He just posted the link to the online conference which happened on the 16th of November, and there you can also find the presentations I saw, so maybe a nice hint for some people listening. And we have a question from Ann-Christine Link. What kind of experts were contacted? Scientists, politicians, urban planners, etc. You are still muted, Lisa.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, actually all of these three categories, experts of all these three categories were contacted. And also from the ones that our sample includes all these categories: practitioners, administrative people, but there is a bias towards scientists, as usually in these kind of questionnaires, because scientists seem to have the time and the capacity to answer questionnaires more often than people working, for example, in the administration.
Okay, we need to soldier on. We are running out of time otherwise. So thank you very much, Lisa, for that. Now I would like to give the floor to Dmitry Boyko from GeoClever in Russia, and he will talk about the post-Soviet satellite city. And I'm very much looking forward to hear about the land policy challenges. So Dmitry, the floor is yours.
There seem to be connection issues right now with Dmitry.
Okay, if Dmitry, is it working?
I suddenly got kicked off. but now I'm turning back. Now is it working?
We see your slides now.
Okay. Then. So the topic is the post-Soviet satellite city, and we looked at the city which is close to Volgograd. It's 1 million inhabitants, and it's called Volsky. It was built in 50s, and the question was, what's actually happening to this type of cities now, because they were created quite massively after the Second World War, and it was expected to be an answer to the question how to stop the growth of big cities, how to make so there was a directive that refused to they decided to refuse building new industries in big cities. That's why new cities were needed, and one type of these cities is situated next to our city of residence, where our company is now working. And the question was narrowed about just the period of turning to market and our evaluation of what was happening. Now, the short version of answer, and I will demonstrate each thesis one by one. First of all, we should say that the population of the metropolitan city, the big neighbor, Volgograd, is showed with red dots, and the Volsky, and we can see that the population actually does not grow. Small differences are explained by national censuses in 2002 and 2010. And in other periods, there were some administrative borders changes, but the population is not that much growing and more or less decreasing. And this is the first plan of the city, satellite city Volsky, 70 years ago, and this was the plan for the area. It was that type of modernistic planning. This is the plan of new neighborhoods, new microrayons in the outskirts of Volsky when it was growing. Mostly it was planned like an industrial city. On the north and east, you can see big land parcels for industries. The second thesis that the built-up area is expanding. This is data of global human settlement layer, and inside the current administrative borders of the city. And this you can see that some new settlements were included into the administrative boundaries, but the population was still the same. And the gray color, you can see the industrial zones. They are pretty far from the city, but still the ecological impact is very important. Here you can see the structure of the city in periods. So the green dots is from 50s to 60s, the first stage of building. Then light blue is next decade, and you can see the further city was growing, the less was the density, as in later years a new construction when the land market came, it became possible to infiltrate new buildings in the old structures to use more effectively the land which was planned in the Soviet planning system. And the most dense was the period of the first from 50s to 60s. And nowadays, the density is almost staying at the level of 80s, and the system of construction works in the same algorithm. We also use the instruments to evaluate the integration, and we can see that in old part, the first part of the city, the integration is the highest, and when we go to the new neighborhoods, it's getting lower. Also, we saw that new neighborhoods starting even earlier than 90s, they have less schools and parks and kindergartens because the schools are actually there, but they are less acceptable. It's more difficult to get there. The new microrayons actually not that new in style of planning and architecture. This is the picture taken 1 year ago. And the neighborhood is actually constructed in the same modernistic paradigm. Even at the same time, as automobilization is growing, when the people get richer and then they can afford buying a car or second car, mostly most shops, most retail is built in a very car-oriented way. And there is two reasons of absence of or getting not enough public spaces. The first is in very old squares. You can there is a sculpture of Lenin in the middle and no people on the street, and it's huge area in the city center without no construction. And due to market forces, no place to build something what doesn't bring money in the new neighborhoods. And you see just the empty land on the left built as a greenfield on the next stage. And the heat islands, there is a very difficult situation with ecology, as the city is accepted like an industrial. The red parcels are the plants which produce chemicals and pipes made of metal and other quite bad air polluting products, and that's why the plants are still making a huge impact on the air, for example, in the air. And there is a certain statistics on diseases connected to the quality of air. Speaking about the changes in a short way, what was actually happening, as I said, voids in urban fabric have been built up. New low density districts were included. And new density took part in all the directions, but it was very low density and car oriented. There were built new connections to the main city, Volgograd, which were constructed for car usage because it's too far to go by foot, and it's not that often to be used by public transport, and no railway connections. And this is the employment structure. The red is just go to the conclusion. So the three conclusions. First, the satellite is still very industrial oriented, so it's the second sector, while the finances and hotels and restaurants are still in the main city. The second is accepted like a bedroom neighborhood, which works like one of districts, and people massively go to the city center to work. it's a type of post-Soviet urban sprawl which was studied by Leipzig, for example, and you can see the stages of areas being developed. This is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's turn to Lucas first and see whether there are any questions from the audience, which I've heard is now around 12 people, which is good. So 12 excluding us. So that's an important remark, which is great. But I would like to encourage everybody in the audience to ask questions. It's probably for some of you still an unusual format, but use the chat function. It's very convenient actually in post the other conference. Well, thank you very much, Dmitry, for your insight in this part of the world where we actually don't hear a lot in academic conferences, and it would be very interesting to hear more about the land policy challenges in the future. So, Lucas, are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, one question just came in from Ms. Faiza Mackey. Thank you for the interesting presentation, Dimitri. Could you please briefly explain the methodology equals methods done for the analysis?
So the methods we used, the technical methods, it was Google Earth Engine mostly and QGIS. And the data is provided by European Union. It's called Global Human Settlement Layer, and it's widely used in German. For example, articles about urban sprawl. And I should say one more thing, that my project is in Germany is devoted to the topic of urban sprawl of Russian cities. And the methods of different countries to be translated to Russian. And this is the whole going to work on during my stay in Germany for this year. And there is a website called sprawl.ru, sprawl.ru, and you could follow in more details about the methods. I will try to explain it further there.
Okay, I hear there is one more questions in the audience. Please make it a very brief one and a very brief answer, because we're running out of time otherwise. So, Lucas.
Yeah, the question is by Tobias Henning. Are there any efforts by the state to control the observed urban sprawl?
Actually, there is no common thing in looking at this situation as an urban sprawl. It's the same problem of having not enough developed terminology for this, because there was just one public scientific article published about urban sprawl last year. And for now, it's a very unusual thing to be seen in Russian cities. But as far as urbanization grows, it becomes more evident. But for now, it's not even publicly accepted to call it urban sprawl in Russia.
Thank you very much, Dmitry. You just built a wonderful bridge between what Lisa was talking about when she talked about the terminology and the difficulties in terms of land take, and you're pointing now at urban sprawl. So this linguistic and terminology aspect is very important. And you built a wonderful bridge to the presentation that we will hear next by Jean-Marie Halleux from the University of Liège. And I should correct myself. I was talking about Flanders first, and that is, of course, a mistake. In particular, when you talk in Belgium, this is a talk not mainly about Wallonia, which is the other state within Belgium, I guess. Jean-Marie, the floor is yours, and we are very curious because you will talk exactly about urban sprawl and land take and what happens in Wallonia at the time. So, Jean-Marie, fire up your presentation. We're still in the editing mode, so please put it on presentation mode. And while you're doing that, I can tell you that Jean-Marie is also involved in the Academy of Spatial Planning and Research working group on land policy. And I know that that in particular the Belgium situation is very, very interesting to look at. And now I see that something is happening on the screen, but it's still not yet on presentation mode. Can you work on that, Jean-Marie? Is that a technical issue, Lucas? Can you help?
You can, if you don't find the button, you can just press F5 on your keyboard. It should work as well. And you have to unmute yourself as well.
Okay.
Because we can't hear you yet, Jean-Marie.
Okay, Jean-Marie, please unmute yourself first, and then we'll hope to get through the presentation. There seems to be some technical issues.
Okay, I think I've done it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Now we see your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Thomas. Indeed, I'm going to talk about Wallonia. I'm not sure it's not yet a state, but probably it's another discussion. So you see the title. I will discuss stop beton. It can be translated into concrete, stop concrete in English, and I've entitled it "Stop Beton Strategy: A Last Hope for Urban Containment in Wallonia." So I have prepared it in three parts. So first, concerning the introduction, briefly the context. So as we just discussed, Belgium is currently a federal state with 3 official regions: Brussels in the center, Flanders in the north, which is Dutch-speaking, and Wallonia in the south, which is French-speaking. And since the 80s, 40 years now, the 3 regions have actually full competences for planning. So there are still common points between the 3 regions and between Flanders and Wallonia, but probably the evolution are diverging more and more. So I start here with what was mentioned in the regional master plan. In 2019, it was called Schéma de développement du territoire in French, or SDT. And this was developed under the former parliament's term by Minister Carlo Di Antonio. It was from CDH party, and now we have another minister, Mr. Borsu, is from another party. And what is mentioned in this master plan is much more related to what Lisa has already developed. The idea is to follow the general European ambitions and to reduce land take. So here you have the text in French, and I have translated. So I have translated the key sentence. The objective is to reduce the consumption of non-artificialized land to 6 square kilometer a year by 2030. That has to be compared to the current consumption, which is twice more important, and to move towards 0 square kilometer a year by 2050. We can ask the question, why this objective to reduce land take? Of course, there are general, I would say, global environmental ambitions. We know that it's very important to achieve global environmental ambitions, starting with, of course, global warming. As it has been already mentioned, it is related also to the European context with this general ambition to move towards no net land take by 2050. As Lisa mentioned, it is related to this roadmap to a resource-efficient Europe. And it is also related to the Belgian context. And here we see the relationship between the two regions, because that's actually Flanders that started with this, I would say, ambitions following the European context. and they discussed this issue of stop béton or béton stop in Flanders since 2016. Here I have illustrated it with a first article in a major Flemish journal, which is called the Standaard. And actually, this expression "stop béton" is coming from the press. In the Flemish journal, they call it béton stop, and it's very easy to translate it into French. It becomes stop béton, or if you want to use proper French, it should be stop au béton, something like that. But basically, the idea is to follow this objective towards no net land take. In April, actually, when I prepared the abstract, as I mentioned about the title, I posed the question. I asked the question: is this a last hope for urban containment in Wallonia? Since April, I have been involved in the research. Also, I have been involved in an expert group to make it operational. And I have to say that a few months later, my answer would be that I have no real hope anymore. Why? I will try to explain that in brief. It is related to four main blockages. First, very deep respect for property rights. Of course, we are not going to change it from in one day. Also, and I think this is related to this respect for property rights, we need expertise in land policy. Also, a major issue is the deep respect for the autonomy of the local authorities. So, Thomas, it is related to what you mentioned about the competition between the various levels of government. Clearly, the regional authority doesn't seem to be able to impose its view on the local authorities. And this is also related to a fourth blockage, which is the fact that planning is still considered as a brake for development, and especially at the local level. So I will discuss those four main blockages, and I would be very, very happy to have your opinion, because it's always difficult to say if it's normal, those blockages, if they are normal or if they are specific to the context. So I would be happy if you could react to this. So to develop those four blockages, so I make here reference to the second and third part of the presentation. So I will deal with this property rights and land policy first, and then we will move towards this issue of local autonomy and local development. So concerning property rights, we have this deep respect for property rights. And that has to be related to this issue of compensation. I think Lisa has mentioned it also in her presentation. We have, since the 1962 Planning Act, the principle that if there is a loss in value due to planning regulation, the owner has to be compensated. And when this principle was used, when we have developed the land use plans, it has actually led to an oversupply of residential area, of building land. Briefly to explain how the urbanization has been implemented into Belgium, before 1962, before this Planning Act, there were no systematic land use plan, there were no systematic zonings, and basically the development were allowed along any roads as long as the roads were serviced with basic infrastructure. And then in 1962, we had the development of regional land use plans. But because of this principle on compensation, that led to an oversupply of residential areas, which are the areas where it is possible to develop a residential project. So here you have an image of those regional land use plans. This is Liège here, this is Namur. And you see the red areas or the orange areas, they are building land. And basically, we still consider today that we could house maybe twice the population. So we have this huge amount of building lands. And this is, of course, a key problem if we really want to go towards this no net land take. And as a consequence of that, we have had a huge urban sprawl. So here I take these indicators of urban build-up area per inhabitants. And you see, for instance, that in countries like the UK or the Netherlands, with rather strict planning policies, the indicator is about 200 square meter per inhabitants. In Belgium, it's much higher, it's 500. And if you go to Wallonia, if you look at Wallonia, it's above, it's more than 600. So we have had this strong property rights, which have led to huge building land possibilities. And of course, nowadays, the concrete result is a massive urban sprawl. So in the research we have produced for the regional authorities and also in the regional working group with the experts, a key issue was, of course, how to rezone those lands into non-building lands. And I will discuss here very briefly two issues. First issue is about taxation. The idea here is to finance the compensation through a new tax on new urban land. This was integrated in the legislation in 2017. But when they went to the discussion on the rate, again, this fact that property rights are very strong is obvious. So, for instance, if you take the compensation, then we will have to use the rate of 80%. So 80% should be compensated. But if you go to taxation, currently the rates that are into the legislation, depending on the added value, but it's very weak, less than 1%, 0.5% to 15% maximum. So once again, it shows it's very difficult to do something with such strong property rights. Then we also try to work on transferable development rights. Well, I will be very brief on that. Basically, the conclusion, notably through the expert groups, was that it is too complex. So basically, we don't have, I would say, the social capital to manage this kind of, I would say, rather sophisticated land use tools. And as a university professor, I make a relationship with my practice with the fact that planning is not well taught. And I think there are a relationship between the history of planning, the history of higher education, and also the level of expertise. And for instance, if you go to the Netherlands or if you go to the UK, when you are 18 years old, you can immediately start with specific planning studies at the undergraduate level. In French-speaking Belgium, so we try to change it, but to have a specific program on spatial planning, you first have to be a master, so you have to be 73 years old. So clearly there are relationships. We need to develop the higher education. We need to develop the level of expertise to be able to develop appropriate tools, for instance, such as transferable development rights. And so quickly to this issue of local autonomy and local development. So currently, the position of the minister is that the local authority, they will not be forced to follow the regional objectives. So they will not impose, for instance, local master plan or municipal master plans, where the municipality will have to think how they will manage to achieve this objective in terms of land take. And this is related also to history, to the strengths of local autonomy in a country like Belgium. And this is also related to the fact that if you go to the Walloon Parliament, there is a high proportion of mayors, there is a high proportion of aldermen. So politicians active also at the local level. And of course, they are not going to prepare proposals at the regional level that will affect their possibility to achieve local developments. And this issue is also related to the fact that the municipal incomes, so the money from the money that can be used by the municipalities, they highly depend on local taxes. And lots of those taxes are actually related to urbanization. So they depend on local taxes, and in other way, they depend on land takes. So clearly, there is a paradox in this situation. I have finished, so thank you for your attention. And once again, I would be very happy if we could discuss about those blockage, knowing if those blockage are just everywhere or if they are just maybe specific to this context. Thank you.
It will be very tricky right now for me. Thank you very much, Jean-Marie. You triggered a lot of debates, and I see that Mariam reacted, but also in the chat function, we've seen a lot of comments coming up. Lucas, is there a way to sum it up in the debate in very brief words? I've seen that there are a couple of comments, and probably you should copy these comments to Jean-Marie for later. But we are running out of time. So, Lucas, any chance to sum it up?
Well, there were some comments regarding your question, Jean-Marie. For example, by Nova Blase from the Brownfields Program Project, who said the US has also a deep respect for property rights and decentralized planning. And Eva Maria Schatz said, I'm working in a surface project with Elizabeth Markert and similar concerns. For example, local authority for planning and deep respect for property rights were brought to our attention by multiple experts from different countries. And Nova Blase said, yes, especially in larger metropolitan areas. So yeah, there are several comments on that. But yeah, I think I will bring it to you as well in the chat. And I guess we now have to move on, right?
We have to quickly move on. There's a question by Uwe Ferber on the tradable development rights. I remember that, Jean-Marie, you mentioned no, that is too complex for the Wallonian case. Probably a comment on that if you want, a short one.
Okay.
So do you want to comment on the issue of tradable development rights, tradable land permits? So you said that's not an option for Wallonia?
Yeah, as I said, they were afraid that it would be just too complicated to develop this, because you have to be able to have a proper evaluation of the land values, and then you have to create, of course, this kind of new market. And so basically, the people that think with the minister, they reach a conclusion that the local expertise is not there to develop this. Yes,
and I think as far as I know, Uwe Ferber is from Germany, in Germany we have a very good system of land market observations, which is very exceptional. As soon as you get outside of Germany, you don't have this information on the land markets, which restricts a lot of instruments. Sorry, but we need to move on. Otherwise, we do injustice to the last presenter, which is Eliška. And Eliška will talk about developer obligations from the Czech Republic. Eliška is from a small but very precious and very good university in the north of the Czech Republic. So there is something else than Prague. And that's the Jan Evangelist Purkyně University in Ústí nad Labem. So Eliška, I'll give the floor to you, and I hope that we can continue our debate later on.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me. I would like maybe to add something to what Jean-Marie said in the Czech institutional context in terms of property rights, because it will help also my presentation to understand the institutional background better. So Jean-Marie, I think we in the Czech Republic have also so the property rights are something which everybody adores also here, but it depends on the baseline in terms of what you have to give back to landowners if you decrease their opportunities for development, because our baseline is similar to what we can see, for instance, in Germany, that if you do not specify that certain land is developable, then you do not need to compensate the landowner. If he was owner of agricultural land, and if he is owner of agricultural land, he will not receive any compensation, which helps very much in terms of the land protection, land preservation from land take. And so today I would like to speak about developers' obligations in connection to land take and land and infill development, because I would like to show you that developers' contributions can incentivize densification, which is maybe a surprising connection between these two things, but I would like to show it as a side effect of developers' contributions, and I will show it on the case of Prague. So maybe before I start to dig deeper into the methods, I should also say the starting point where we are now in Prague and in the Czech Republic. We do not have any established value capture policy yet, like developers' obligations. These policies are usually or always, almost always done with the aim to find financial resources for public infrastructure provision and other things what public sector needs, but we do not have any established value capture policy model yet, and we ran a research which was a broader, which had a broader aim than only to find the side effects in terms of densification of these value capture models. We ran, our project was on adoption a new value capture model into the Prague institutional context. And today I would like to speak only about the results which focus on its connection to densification. So the methods of our research was the analysis of institutional background, together with qualitative content analysis of semi-structured in-depth interviews. We used prepared interview guides, and our interviewees had a leeway how to reply. We sampled with a focus group, which specified several names at the beginning, names of whom we should approach. And afterwards, we used snowball sampling, as our respondents always said to us to whom we should approach next. We ended our snowball when we saw the saturation of viewpoints, when we did not see any new insights into what we studied. We transcribed the data and coded the data. We did not use any content analysis software for that, only manually. We coded it only manually by ourselves. And we used a mixed approach of concept-driven and data-driven development, which means that the codes which we developed were partly based on predefined interview guide and partly on the outcome. And concerning our sample, we approached 23 people in Prague, mainly politicians, public officers, developers, NGO representatives, one architect, academicians, and representatives of consultancy companies in development. So that was our sample. And what about the results if we look at densification? First, I will define what I'm going to speak about within this research. As a densification, you might find approaches for densification as building new modern quarters or some infill development into current urban built-up areas. And if you speak about infill development, it might be like building a totally new building within some built-up areas somewhere within city, or it might be about question how high a new building should be, if it should have a low number of floors or a higher number of floors. And the more floors, the more dense the development would be at the end. And I will speak particularly about this infill development into current built-up areas, not about new modern quarters. And when we speak about the infill development of housing within current urban areas, we have to focus on city districts, not on the city level, because the infill development, the decision-making about infill development takes place within city districts. We have the central government of Prague, which defines the vision of urban planning, but does not go into detail of this infill development. And City of Prague is divided into 57 city districts. Each of them has its own government, and this government is elected by the citizens within the district. Concerning formal decision-making power of these governments, they have actually no decision-making power. They can only express their positions. It's so I would like to stress that this is the formal decision-making power which they have, and we'll see that informally they can do also something else. The expectations of citizens towards what these governments can do are different, however, because the citizens think that these governments actually decide about investors' intentions, about if an infill development will take place or not, and about how high a new building might be, etc. So the expectations of citizens are very different from what these governments can actually do. So we can say that the citizens are a bit confused. And why is it so? Within the districts, it is the district, there reside some institutions which are important for infill development, and these are mostly building authorities as state administration bodies. And these building authorities reside usually in the same building as these governments, are part of the district hall, and are even employees of this office, with some opportunities for local politicians to influence them as the employees of the office. Yes?
There are 3 minutes left, or 2 minutes actually, so
okay.
if you might want to come to a conclusion.
Oh, okay. And because the building authorities decide as state administration bodies about if some infill development will take place or not, the governments try to block them, try to make pressure on them to block new development, or the pressure on them to push them to decrease the number of floors. So I will skip. So the current state is that city districts actually hate new infill development because it does not bring them anything, and citizens are also against. Citizens are against because it decreases open space for them. It brings pressure on new public infrastructure, and where we are when we adopt a certain developer obligations model. These reasons for blocking go away because there might be no pressure on new public infrastructure provision anymore, and actually developers' contributions increase with floor area. So new developer obligations might incentivize to increase the number of floors if a new building takes place somewhere. So instead of blocking of development, the governments might even start to support it. I would like to speak also about side effects of these value capture models, which might bring some new infill development into the urban areas. But if they are effective for gathering new money for public sector and effective in terms of, for instance, provision of services which public sector needs, like social housing and so on. These side effects do not need to be so positive and might start to be negative in terms of bringing new development into places where we actually do not want them so much due to our thoughts about too high land take. So to conclude, may I conclude?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. So I see developer contributions as models which may incentivize infill development and densification, but as well which may incentivize development outside urban boundaries. And I think to be able to really achieve the aim of no land take in 2050, we need some other instruments directly aiming at land preservation. So thank you for your attention. And sorry if I was too long. I thought I did not run out of my 15 minutes.
Okay, so sorry, I'm chased a lot by the conference organizers to end in time, and it's of course a session with 5 presentations.
Okay.
So sorry for chasing, and thank you very much for the very interesting debate. I'm instructed to try to end the sessions in time, so I would suggest to check the chat function again, and Lucas, if you could put if there are any comments in the chat function, but I cannot see any right now, put them here. And I would like to really thank everybody for this for these wonderful insights and the good discussion we had. Let's continue the debate. And Lucas, are we still live, or is the session already ended?
It's still live right now, and the chat in the MEI will be available even after the session. So you as presenters can look it up and contact the people, for example, because you see the names and you can click on them. So maybe you can start a debate.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, with that, it's already the end of our session, which was very inspiring when we covered a lot of ground and land, actually. So thanks a lot, and well, enjoy the rest of the conference, and check out the chat function in the MEA app for further discussions.